Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It's episode 99 on April 13th, 2021. I'm Gavin Pickin, and I have Eric Peterson joining me today. Welcome, Eric.
Hey Gavin. Glad to be here.
Okay, well, first up, let's do our sponsor thanking thing. So thank you to Order Solutions. Without them, we couldn't make this podcast happen. A few ways you can give back to Order Solutions. We always recommend that you go like and subscribe to YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. That's one way you can watch this. If you're listening on your podcast and you want to see our pretty faces, you can do that up on YouTube. But you also have CFCasts, which you can get a free or paid account in CFCasts, and both of those help us. And that is great video content released every week. And we also have a new Orders book out, 102 Cold Box HMVC quick tips and tricks on Gumroad. And that is another way you can say thanks to Order Solution for all the things they do with Cold Box, Command Box, Forge Box, Test Box, and all the other boxes, including this podcast, which is not Podbox, just for reference. But another way we can make this possible through our Patreon supporters, right, Eric?
That's right. You too can become a Patreon supporter. We are currently at the 79% of the funding for this podcast. There are some lovely perks as well if you join at a certain level, which I can't remember the name, so we'll just call it a certain level. Yeah. The bronze level, including a CFCast subscription and a Forge Box subscription.
Yep.
You can check that out at patreon.com/ordersolutions to see all the lovely perks you're going to get when you sign up.
Yep, and we'll tell you a little bit more at the end of the show. We thank all of our Patreon sponsors, individually and badly pronounced. Okay.
But with love.
Yeah, with lots of love. That's how we do it. Okay, well, let's get into some news and events. So, I think after, 6-8 months, Lucy has finally got the release candidate 2 for the 5.3.8 edition. So they've been doing a lot of work on that. Like I said, it's been months in the making, but they've got a lot of things actually in this release.
Yeah, there is a huge list of tickets fixed. Very impressive.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen for those watching, but you'll see there's been a ton of performance tuning, some session changes, ORM changes, which we love when we see ORM changes, logging, exceptions.
That wasn't sarcastic, by the way.
No, it was really true. Sometimes the ORM is underused in the Lucy world, and so the tickets there just sit a lot longer than we'd like. But it's a lot of static, some miscellaneous ones too. So a lot of great things. This is just in this release candidate too. So these are changes since that. If you go back and look at the highlights for 5.3.8, there's a lot of great stuff in here. So it's a really big, milestone. I know that they wanted to make this super stable. It's probably the last last release before they go Lucy 6, from what I'm aware of. So they wanted to make sure it's a super stable copy before they, do some cool stuff in Lucy 6. So Brad tweeted a couple times about it this week as well, saying it, it's really stable. I think it has this query of query stuff in there too, so he's really excited to get that out there. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. In there, so
absolutely.
So yeah,
you can also try it right now through Command Box and Forge Box.
Yep.
You can either put in the full RC or just Lucy at EE will get you the latest release candidate there.
Yep, and there is a ton of stuff out there. So yeah, Lucy's really on top of it. Definitely try it out. It's a big update. A lot of great stuff in there. Okay, so next up we have something which may not be news for you, but a few people had slipped by. So I hadn't seen this either, but Adobe CF 2021 Lockdown Guide is available. So Charlie Earhart blogged this for us.
Yep, he put it over on the Adobe portal. Has some links to that, as well as the 2018 and 2016 version. I'll be honest, I took a quick peek into it just to see if they have stopped telling people to disable the internal Java stuff, and they haven't, which makes me sad. I get hit by that in some of my projects that are supposedly cross-platform. So
Yep, and I actually
using
ran.
Java lang system is not a problem.
Well, see, that was a weird thing. Is I actually ran into some issues where we upgraded from 2016 to 2018 for a client, but they updated the Java versions, and I thought it was a 2016-2018 difference, but it was the Java version had kicked in, and I guess in Java 8 they don't have modules. So when Java 9 was introduced, they introduced modules, and a whole bunch of things now will no longer have export permissions for just exporting like blank, and so we had to go and add all these weird parameters into the JVM arguments. And in the connector itself, it had a whole commented out section saying, if you're using Java 9, please use these. If you're not, then use below. And so there was a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't see anywhere else. It's not being mentioned too much. So if you go from Java 8 to Java 9 and get some weird issues showing up for Java and you have the lockdown guide implemented, you may want to go in and look at that. And actually I had to do a couple extra changes, some things that weren't in there for some data sources. It might have been a Postgres driver or something, but basically we had to go and add more of these things. Basically it was an unnamed module. You can't export for an unnamed module. And so if you see that error, look at the connector in the JVM config file, and you'll probably see a whole bunch of stuff that you need to add. But I didn't see the system one specifically, Eric, but I just thought that might be kind of interesting. If someone pops up and they hear the error, that's what I found out it was. It was really kind of a weird one to track down.
Got it. Yeah, mine's not a specific Java class. It's just a checkbox that you can put in your administrator that says disable access to internal Java components. And the lockdown guide says it's because they're not documented, which made me chuckle since they're just Java components. They're Java docs are everywhere,
But
so
see, that's the
I've
thing
used
is,
it a few times in like QB or Quick to try to tell what class something is, and
Yeah.
but dropping down to Java can be turned off, and it's a little sad.
But see, that's the internal Cold Fusion Java components. It shouldn't affect your normal Java components, and that's where the weird stuff comes in. Because the error I was getting, if I unchecked that box, it worked. So when they do that, they're also locking down some other stuff. So it's not just Cold Fusion components. Because traditionally, I always thought that was like the Cold Fusion dot whatever jars. No, it's other stuff just randomly thrown in there too. So when they lock that down, they're doing something else which just heightens the Java security. So you can still get it to work with that checked, but depending why it's not working, you have to get around that. So that's what I'm saying. Like with that turned on, I couldn't access certain things because that module export for unnamed module didn't work. But if I unchecked it, it worked. So it was something with there's some other level of security that they're flagging in there. Because I only thought that was only supposed to be for Cold Fusion Java components, not anything in my Java files. So anyway, so that's I guess news for anybody else too. But I mean, it's in the lockdown guide for a good reason. But we just need to find a way to get stuff to work that we need to work. So, anyways, so next up, the Mid-Michigan CFUG has an event tonight, Tuesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. We have Embracing the Jamstack with Ray Camden. So if you're wanting to go, sort of static, Jamstack is a pretty popular stack out there. Ray's been talking about it for quite a while on there, and so if you want to, you can go to the mfcfug.org, and they have a link there to the meeting URL. Obviously, it's a virtual online one tonight, so if you're watching live, you got time to go check that out. Otherwise, I'm sure they'll have the replay up somewhere soon. Okay, next up, we have a live stream coming up. I think it's this Thursday.
Yep, Thursday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. It is a VS Code live stream about VS Code notebooks. Now, I have never used VS Code notebooks. They very much look like a Python/data science thing. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of cool. I mean, I know that they have their release parties, and we actually forgot to mention that last week's release party. But they also have other events every month for VS Code live streams, and they have a lot of different things. But this notebook's apparently it's a cool concept, and they're starting to build more and more on it. But I have no idea what it is. I'll be honest.
Well, then you should go watch that live stream on Thursday, Gavin.
I should. Yep. But I mean, it sounds interesting, and and wanting to build. I really do want to start building some extensions at some point, and I just like the idea of this. And I've heard quite a bit about the Jupyter notebooks, and so I'm sort of curious. So, but yeah, I mean, they have a live stream, and the cool thing is, like I said, they have a couple a month. And in case you missed it, VS Code 1.55 release party was last Thursday, April 8th. And the VS Code team, they hold a live event. They show off the new features of the release, and they have a Q&A. And so they were highlighting March's release. And so we have a link there on YouTube, so you can watch that if you missed it. But yeah, keep an eye on the VS Code page, because, like I said, they do have quite a few things. They have people from the community showing off their cool extensions, and it's pretty neat. Okay.
Okay. The Adobe webinar series on API creation and management continues. The next webinar is at the end of this month on the 28th. This is their 7-part webinar, and we will put a link in the show notes so you can get information about how to sign up. Do you know, Gavin, if they have the previous available as recordings?
Yep, I just added that today thanks to Charlie. He tweeted it out. So there's a link to the recordings, and I'll show those watching what it looks like. But they actually have some of the Adobe CF Summit 2020 videos there as well on that same page. So, but you can see the first two in the Cold Fusion webinar series, so the introduction, and then a little bit more. And then, like I said, there are all the videos from Adobe CF Summit on here as well. So if you guys didn't get to the conference, you can check that out here as well. So, but yeah, at first I didn't know what they were, but Charlie found that link and shared it. So again, thanks, Charlie. And yeah, there's 7 total, and we've got 2 more at the end of this month, and then 3 in May. So a lot of great content from some top community members.
So we have some real-time follow-up here from Charlie about my complaint of that checkbox in Adobe. I had thrown out like accessing the Java system class, and that was, I should not have just thrown that out. The actual issue, I went and jumped back into QB to see, was when I wanted to tell if something was a number, I was calling get class on it and get simple name, trying to get to the Java name. And Adobe does not like that with that checkbox. So I guess they believe that their CF double or whatever classes behind that is too important for anybody to touch. Though I can get the same information using metadata, so I don't quite know what they're worried about. But anyway, that was the actual issue, is I couldn't call get class on a potential number with that secure internals disabled check. So
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean, yeah, I understand locking things down, but doesn't sound like that's the most concerning function. I don't know, but
maybe somebody security minded can tell me why, and then I can stop complaining about it.
yeah. And again, like I said, I mean, I like being able to enable certain things and keep it locked down. But yeah, not always easy. Maybe if Pete Freitag's listening, he seems to be the big one on that.
Pete, tell me why I'm wrong, please.
Since Pete did write most of the lockdown guides too, right? So, okay. Well, next up we have some online CF Meetup information. So last week we had a CSS crash course for CSS haters or novices with Jessica Keener. And so that was last week. We have the recording here, so we'll share the recording in the show notes. That's up on Charlie Earhart's YouTube channel with a lot of other videos from CF Meetup. And then this week we have another one from Luis Mahano on the online CF Meetup.
Yeah, we have To the Future with CV Futures. So this is a component of Coldbox or even just Wirebox standalone, where you can tap into Java's completable future and the API surrounding that. It's kind of threads on steroids, superpowers. So
Yeah.
you can come learn again. This is available in just standalone Wirebox. You don't have to be running a full Coldbox application to get there. I know that Luis just added some scheduling things too, so you can now, from Cold Fusion, basically set up like a mini cron job. It's pretty cool. So You
Yep.
should check out some of the stuff he has there in this meetup.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the way it's much more JavaScript-like. So, obviously Cold Fusion has added some of these features, but it's nice to have those extra features now. It's just really fluent feeling, and so I like that style a whole lot more. So,
Yeah, like one example I did the other day for a client was we needed to do. They had some report page and they had 3 or 4 database calls at the same time, and it was so easy to put them into to parallelize that and just do each request without having to jump into CF thread. Or I think before I would do like Lucy's array each, but even that's not available over in Adobe. So it was very easy, and I was very happy about it.
yep. Yeah, I like the fact that Luis keeps track of what's available in Java and jumps into the Java libraries to really help you with that. And yeah, I mean, there's some nice stuff. Like I said, Lucy and Adobe both added some more asynchronous type programming, but it's nowhere near as full and featured as the Java stuff. And Luis spent a lot of time making sure like almost every function that Java has we can do too. So it's it's pretty cool. And yeah, like you said, it powers Coldbox now and Wirebox too. So we get a lot of that goodness.
And if I'm remembering right, the new in Command Box 5 point, what's the next one? 4?
3?
I don't know. Command Box BE. It's handling redrawing on the shell.
Oh,
So Brad, instead of just constantly redrawing, now batches it in like 100 millisecond increments or something like that. But yeah, it's
very
been a lot
cool.
more smooth for me. So it's powering everything.
Very cool. And then if you want to see Luis Mahano talking a little bit more, he has an Audis webinar on April 23rd, so the following week at 11 a.m. Central Time. And this one he'll be building modern web apps with Content Box modular CMS. So Content Box 5 beta is out, and so he's going to be showing that off a little bit, and then yeah, showing you how to work with Content Box and build, basically build Callbox apps on top of it. So.
Yeah, I know a couple headlining features of that too are content boxes. We're building an easy migration path from Mira as they've gone closed source, as well as multi-site support. So there's some neat things to check out in that webinar.
Yep. And just a reminder, the new book from Luis is available up on Gumrobes, and we'll share that link in the show notes too. So, and then thanks for everyone who's actually been reviewing that. It's nice to see some tweets out there, and a lot of people have been using Coldbox forever. I mean, almost longer than Luis. So they still learn a few things from the book. So good to see that, and thanks for everybody who's supporting us with that book. Okay, next up we have some CFCasts.
That's right. No, and we will talk about the content updates, but there's also some site updates.
Yep.
We released a new version of CFCast just yesterday, and I think the biggest one that you will see is we now have an autoplay feature. So
Ooh.
you get to the end of your video, it'll pop up this little thing, count down, and play the next one for you. So you can just keep binging to your heart's delight, or flip the little switch, and we won't do that to you ever again. And additionally, you'll see coming up, we're adding little instructor pictures everywhere, so you can know who's doing what course before you get watching the videos.
Sounds good.
So
Very cool.
As well as some content updates. We are still doing a lot with the command box 0 to hero. We have talked about server start and other commands, the server.json and artifacts, as well as a new video in the Coldbox What's New with Coldbox 6 series about the new Coldbox debugger.
Yep, that was a new
you might
debugger.
have seen this.
Yep, released
last week. It's the same video that was in the blog post, so you're not missing anything there, but now you can keep track of it in CFCasts as well.
Yep, very
and
cool.
We still have coming up after the command box workshop is our up and running with Quick workshop will be released, and as well as the using DocBox that we've talked about. And I am currently working on a Logbox 101 course. It will teach you everything that you ever forgot about Logbox.
I know it does so much cool stuff, and I very rarely touch more than just the surface of it. I mean, yeah, it's so nice. And again, it's nice to have a Logbox 101 because I'm sure there's a million things I should be using it for that I just don't even think about it. So, uh, I'm cool. I'm really looking forward to that one too. I need a refresher. So, very cool. Okay, so next up, we have some conferences. And for those watching live, tomorrow we're going to get some Vue love with VueConf.
I know I saw that email today and was like, whoa, that's tomorrow. I gotta make sure I have time to watch some stuff.
Yep, I'm sure they'll have everything available later, but it's definitely fun to sort of watch live, and especially if you've got a Slack channel, you can ping some of your coworkers about stuff like, did you see that? What are they doing there? And oh man, I'm so far behind. But yeah, so it's hosted by Evan Yu. It's got a lot of great speakers there, and there'll be attendee lightning talks as well. They're gonna have like a live DJ virtual party, and the workshops are available now. And that's available at vueconf.com. So for those watching, you can check it out here. Again, the tickets are available up until the 13th, so it's free. So you probably want to get them today because it looks like you can't get them tomorrow. So I'm not sure if that's just because they're sending out all the information or not. But definitely go sign up, register. It's free, and then get on the list there. But yeah, a lot of great content coming, and a whole day of Vue sounds awesome. I really needed to catch up too with this Vue 3. It's going to be a big change. I haven't migrated any of my apps yet, so I'm kind of need to take on all of this conference just to get up to speed on everything that's coming with Vue. So okay, and then if you want more conferences, next week we have RedisConf. So that's going to be April 20th and 21st. So Redis is another great option for those looking at. Well, it does a lot of things actually now. It's not just everyone thinks of caching, but it's not just that anymore. So RedisConf has a lot of good things in there. Hackathon has probably got the most interest out of everybody in the community. So, but the
So, have
hackathon.
you heard of any ideas for the hackathon yet? Because I've tried to think of some, and I must just be boring.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a couple ideas floating around. I mean, I always think of games. Games are fun to make, fun to play with, but um, I know that the time series stuff, Luis mentioned to me about some, for logging and error tracking and stuff, because you could see things in sort of real time with the time series. We could always build another search equivalent. We have a lots of Elasticsearch stuff. We could build a Redis search thing. But, I mean, I want something to be fun, stand out. I mean, there's $100,000 on the line. Not everyone can win it. Obviously, there's some details on it. But, yeah, I mean,
I too, when I saw that they had Redis search, thought, oh, it'd be nice to have, some of the Redis search stuff talk to that as well as Elasticsearch as well as
yeah.
uh, what's the one that's Algolia. But then I thought, yeah, no one's gonna give me a prize for that.
Yeah.
I'll do that on my own time. I won't kill myself trying to get it done.
Yeah, so there's a few different prizes, broken up and everything, and I'm sure there's plenty of good things, but yeah, like I said, they have the Redis streams, the Redis search, the Redis graph, the time series, the search, and they've got the AI, which the AI sounds interesting, but again, I'm just basically blanking on good ideas here. So if anyone has a good idea, I mean, I think you have until May to actually get that completed. So it's basically starts now, and I think you have April 15th to May 15th is the time. So basically that starts this week. And anyways, the conference is going to be good too. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, a lot of people have been talking about $100,000 and money for doing some cool stuff. So, but yeah, I think it's kind of neat. Check out some of those things and find out more about it. So maybe watch the conference videos and then maybe we'll get some ideas. So, but that's April 20th and 21st, and you can sign up for that at RedisConf. Oh, sorry, redislabs.com/RedisConf. Okay.
Okay. Other conferences coming up. We've talked about Atlassian Teams, which will be the end of the month, the 28th and the 30th. So using any of Atlassian's products, you might be interested in that one.
Yep, definitely got a team focus with that one. And then AWS Summit Online Americas, so that's May 12th and 13th. It's online and free, and then you can find out all about Amazon AWS services, the 180 million products they have and services, and find out a little more about which ones you might like or might want to use, or what the heck they actually are, because sometimes that's really useful too, because a lot of different things there. So you can get in and get some examples, and I found it really neat when I went to one in person a long time ago. They had some really good examples of, like just being able to spin up and spin down dynamos, and how they actually used it. The white paper stuff really got me thinking, like, I would never thought to use it like that, and they just spun up like hundreds and hundreds of these servers for like 5 or 10 minutes and got everything done, instead of having one server chugging on it for like 25 days or whatever else they had.
Right.
They had some crazy stuff that they would just pump into it, and then basically get all the results out, and they used it. A lot of different companies using it to crunch all sorts of crazy things. So I like it because you learn about what the services can do, but also they give you some ideas on how you can maybe improve your setup, and it's definitely really cool. Like, there's so many services there. You could definitely find something to make your developer life or your your websites better. And then at the end of May, May 27th, we have Dockercon. So a lot of great content there. They've got very beginner courses all the way to crazy ninja courses. So there's going to be plenty of content there. You'll definitely find something that will suit you and help fill in that Docker gap. Hopefully they have more Swarm stuff and less Kubernetes, but I don't think so. uh, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there. So May 27th, 2021, free online virtual experience. So go sign up, and that is docker.com/dockercon-live-2021. And you can go register for that and keep up to date on all the information. Yeah, a lot of conferences.
As always, if you're interested in more conferences, you can head over to confs.tech and then search there. CFML is on the list, and you can sort by that or see any other languages that they have on their website.
Yep, for sure. And then our call for speakers for Into the Box should be coming very soon. We're working on all the questions, so once that's out, we'll have the call for speakers for Into the Box, and then you guys can submit for that. And then once we have that, we'll give you more information about who's speaking in sessions, hopefully in the next month or so. Okay, so let's get into the blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. And our first one up is Charlie's lockdown guide that we spoke about earlier. So
That's right.
So this one here, again, it has been available since the end of December. It was updated in January, but yeah, just for those who missed it, the lockdown guide is here. It is a little longer than the 2018 version, a lot relating to the new package management stuff that 2018 didn't have, obviously. So again, thanks Charlie for sharing that. If you're using the new Adobe, definitely check out the lockdown guide. Very, very important. Okay. So we had a...
Next, we have a...
Yeah,
Oh,
I was going to say, just we have a tweet from James, and I thought it was an interesting one to share. And so this one, he's actually migrating some apps. So he's migrating some 2016 apps to CF 2021 and also Lucy. And what he did is he jumped in and grabbed Lucy's unit tests, and then he's running them against different engines. So it's kind of interesting that if he runs the same tests that pass on Lucy and he runs them on 2016 or 2021, he gets different errors. And so from that, he's able to figure out what differences are in the language and stuff. So it's kind of interesting, unit tests, between the engines even can help you figure out what's good for migration. So, yeah, I just thought it was kind of an interesting way to, like tests are important, but he just grabbed somebody else's tests and run them to to get a little leg up on the competition there. So he's definitely tweeting a lot about that migration process and different things. So James Moberg is at Games Over on Twitter, so check it out. He's got a lot of good stuff coming out there, but that's one I wanted to spotlight because just another good use for test cases.
Next, we have a trio of Ben Nadal posts. The first one about experimenting with try, catch, retry semantics. So the CF try and catch tags also have a CF retry that you can throw in there inside the catch block, and you can use that. Ben uses it here in kind of a exponential backoff scenario where you're trying a service and you give longer between each try until you just stop trying. And he compares and contrasts using like a for loop you might think of, looping over until you're done, compared with this retry, and see which one he likes better. I think the takeaway from it was he wasn't sure which one he liked better.
Yeah. And he says it's kind of funny too. He mentions that he doesn't know if he's sure about the array shift idea because he was using that inside the code to shift the values off the front of the array. Sleeping and then retrying, basically waiting for the service to come back. But yeah, I like this one because I don't know if I've probably written some retry-like code before, but it's not something we do a lot of unless it's in a long-running task that we're trying to get to finally complete. But there's so much stuff out there. But and the next up,
the
one,
next one from Ben is about using structs as arrays. So as we know, Cold Fusion is a dynamic language, which means we don't have to specify the type beforehand. We're not bound to that. And if you pass in a variable that can be more than one type, strings come to mind, strings and numbers especially, it will figure out what it needs to do with it. And so this is a case where Lucy will take a struct that has numeric keys and values and treat that as an array. You can use the array built-in functions on it. You can do all sorts of things there, append, delete, add an index, and it will treat it as an array the whole time. So
I'm not sure I like
nifty.
array-ish stuff. It's kind of weird.
Array-ish, yeah.
That's what I keep scrolling it everywhere. I'm like, interesting.
I think he asks in there, he just says, like, this is interesting, don't know if it's useful. I couldn't help but just see PHP everywhere, because that's how PHP arrays work.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, but PHP's arrays are all
structs with numeric keys.
Keyed, basically. And the keys are numbers by default, or you can put a value in there. So that's what I thought of. Made me laugh.
That is pretty weird. But interesting, yeah. And so this one here is another one from Ben. And this is something if you have a log tool that basically gets all your error catching. Usually they show up as different errors if someone's basically using a script kiddie, and you get stuff that looks like this for those watching. Can't cast string blah 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 to this type. A lot of these ones here are from query params. So if someone hits you with a bot and they're trying to get into files or trying to use different passwords or trying to get into your system, essentially you get all these weird errors, and because each one of them is a different error message, then basically it looks like you've got 115,000 different error types instead of it's just one, which is basically a param tag casting error. So he walked through trying to basically work on that where they'll throw a different type of error, but he didn't want to lose the original message, so he puts it in the detail. So it was kind of again another thought experiment, and I'm just thinking maybe we should add this into Sentry or something, Eric, the Sentry logger we have, because I get this happening a lot of time for customers too, where the message itself changes every time. So something like this he made, the message is always the same, and the detail has the more descriptive error message in it. Because I run into this quite a lot. So
yeah, I've run into that too. Sentry does a pretty good job. Again, as long as the type is consistent, you can group it over by type instead. So.
Oh yeah, I guess that's a good point. He's using Loggly. I'm not sure if they have that feature available or not, but yeah, interesting. So, Now this one I thought of you because Matthew Clemente was talking about using Postgres JDBC driver, and I know you got some JDBC stories for us a little later, but this one he was actually talking to Postgres with Cold Fusion, but bypassing CF Query completely and using the Java stuff to get there, which I thought was.
I have to wonder, because I talked to Matt in my escapades that we'll talk about with Postgres and JDBC, and so I just have to wonder if I gave him the idea to try this.
Yeah, because he says here it's like, for irrelevant reasons, or reasons irrelevant to this post. And so, yeah, so he just basically talks about, creating the query, using the connection string, connecting to it, passing the SQL, and then how to loop over the SQL results, the query results. And with Adobe, it's a little different than Lucy, but, basically you can do it without CF Query. And, if you really want to know what CF Query is saving you, this is basically what it's doing, because I remember using ASP.NET and PHP in the old days where you had to do all this crazy stuff just to make a query, and it was painful. And that's why most people used Cold Fusion. It's because they hated doing all this stuff. But life's different now, but still. So yeah. But anyway, so as he said, don't know why you wouldn't be using CF Query or Query Execute, but now you can if you don't want to. So, pretty funny. Okay.
All right, we have a blog post from TerraTech about funny Cold Fusion custom tag completion. There were some funny jokes, mostly on T-shirts here. Made me want some more T-shirts. I haven't been to enough conferences lately.
Yeah.
But they made me laugh. There was one that's I gotta pull it up here. But it had the blame equals me.
Oh yeah. I have it up here. Let me pull up the. Can I just click on it? There we go.
CF whoops blame equals true. There you go.
Yeah, but so that was Mark Tanada. He actually won that, and so he got a T-shirt with it printed on. And then, blame equals true, undo equals you wish, job status equals false. And then another one was CF dumpster fire equals true year 2020. Theme is into the world .mp4. And so Christy Trent got a runner-up for that one. So they got their shirt. So on the blog post itself, you see Mark wearing his shirt here. And then Christy's wearing her dumpster fire shirt. So, yeah, just a little humor.
I get.
Yeah.
Especially, when I saw the blame equals true, all I could think of is every time I get blamed something, like I'm going through code, I'm like, what? Who did this? Who changed this line? This is garbage. It's always me. Yeah. Every time. So
it is. We know it's always you, right?
It's always me.
So we should do a CF whoops blame equals Eric.
There you go. It would be accurate.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure CF blame only shows the name of the person searching for it when they're angry. You can tell it's telepathic or something.
We could make a function that did that. Make an extension. Always blame the other person or yourself. So we have another one here from Benny Dell, and this one I think is always appropriate. So, talking about staying productive at work, and just sort of we're always battling that and trying to figure out the best way to be productive and efficient. And so he uses some words I can't say, but I'll try. But he's talking about task switching, sensory specific satiety.
I think it's satiety. Like when you're satisfied with something.
Yeah, I don't know. I know what he's trying to say. I don't know how to say it. But anyway, yeah. So we talked about, basically, how you can be productive. You only have so many hours in the day, etc. And so, it's really good read. But talking about basically, doubling estimates, and everyone, sort of has that idea as well. But it's more for, talking about, how to deal with, like when you just can't work anymore, like when your brain feels full on a given task. he can't be productive on that task anymore, he likes to switch it up, changing from a high thinking or a longer term task over to a lower thinking, shorter term task. His brain resets, etc. And he talks about it as the same way as you do with food, like basically when you're full from dinner and you still seem to have room for dessert because you've basically changed, and that's where that term comes from. Or basically, the sensation of being full is tied to the food being eaten. So if you change the food, then basically you reset and you're no longer full. And so it was like just interesting. I usually do the same thing. I basically I have mindless tasks and mindful tasks. And when I'm full on a mindful task, I change to a mindless task that I can just do and get done, and it makes me feel better because I'm checking things off my list. But I don't have to think quite the same. So
yeah, those are also nice as for me like filler tasks when I don't feel like I have enough time between other tasks to get into a new ticket, a new project, so I can go do, like you said, mindless or filler or
or backlog bugs. Yeah, those little ones.
Yep,
for sure. That's kind of nice. And so I still like those things. Make me think a little more and revisit my strategy on it. So yep. So what do we got next, Eric?
We have the blog post that went along with the Coldbox Debugger version 3, or as it is now being called, the Coldbox Mini APM application performance monitor. Because it does a lot. So check out the blog post, check out the video. You can view it here in the blog post or on CFCasts to see all the different features. And it's pretty awesome. I finally got to use it the other day. And very impressed. I'm especially grateful that I can have a window open that's listening to all the requests instead of having to. It helps me to debug like an API where I don't necessarily want a bunch of HTML at the end of my JSON, but I still wanted the data. So
yeah, that's definitely a big plus there. And of course, they've got some quick and QB tracking in here. So the visual debugger looks nice. So yeah, we got a lot of things in it, and obviously we've got some more ideas on how to make it better too. And thanks to everyone who jumped in and did some work with some quick testing as well. I know there was a couple of little bugs, and I think Luis has already jumped on them. So let us know if you find any more, and we'll try and squish them. But it's a big update there, so really cool to see that out, and nice video too, like you said. Okay, you mentioned getting back to the basics with Logbox. This next one is by Tumba, and that's adding Cashbox to your CFML application. And so Cashbox, again, is part of Coldbox, but you can use it by itself. And this one here is basically a little blog post on how to use Cashbox in your application. And then really important is why use cache, And so this is good information, basically trying to figure out why you want to use it too, because sometimes you don't always, know why you should use something. But Cashbox is, it's a good, basically like a short-term memory, and Cashbox is really flexible too, so you can use whatever caching solution you want. There's providers for it, and this one here talks about using it with Preside. So I like the fact that it's nice and step by step, really clean and clear. So if you guys wanted to try it out, it's a really nice blog post for that. Okay, so next up we have Find a Job with CFML Jobs. So if you look on Get CFML Jobs, we have one new one this week. So we have a full-time software developer position available in Houston. That was posted on April 12th, so yesterday. And let's have a look and see what's in this one here. So it's for, I've never heard of this company, Cfml LP. That's a recycler and scrap automobile catalyst. So in Texas, Houston, Texas. Looks like there's all sorts of things in here. 6 months plus with Cold Fusion, some MS SQL, and just 2+ years in application development. So looks like a good little position there. And they are using source control, so that's always a plus.
And you would be close to Into the Box when it comes back to being in person.
That's for sure. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so next up we have ForgeBox Module of the Week, and this week we're looking at CF migrations, and you'll tell us all about it.
Okay, yes, I will. And there's a story behind this, but first, I'll give the features, the new features of CF migrations, and then we'll go into the story. The main thing is CF migrations can now have multiple managers, and they can kind of like if you think of Logbox, or I think a better example is if you've used CB mail services, where you can set up different mail drivers to handle that. So you give it a name, you give it some settings, and you can now do migrations. So you can have multiple databases set up, even different grammars, different directories. You can have one for Elasticsearch. Different modules can um, contribute their own. And so that was the main change. In addition, we have support for seeds now. Seeding is a development task where you want to add a bunch of data into your application very quickly. It's not meant for production data. It's not meant for anything really outside of development. And so you can do both those. And those are both thanks to the wonderful John Clausen. And you can check out the updated documentation on the README. This is a breaking change. This is 3.0. The settings is what mainly changed because we expanded it so it can have those multiple managers. If you don't modify your settings, the default manager should be what you're used to, and you can just keep going. Um, but yeah, so those are the new features. We are also working on getting command box migrations updated to allow us to use all these cool features, the multiple migration managers, things like that. And that is still in progress.
Wow, sounds like a lot of
Um,
work.
yeah, but some really neat things for your application here.
Yep.
So the story, uh, like I said, John did a lot of work on this, and we went back and forth on some changes in how we wanted to do this work, and it got done, and all my tests were failing. And I'm like, well, that's strange. I thought I had this figured out. And for CF migrations, I run the tests against a Postgres database because Postgres one is open source, so I'm going to use an open source database to test this project. I'm not paying for anything. And MySQL does not support rolling back DDL statements or like create, alter, delete, or drop statements in a transaction tag. And since CF migrations is all about create, alter, drop, that's not very useful. I couldn't like make a change, roll it back, and in between tests. So, and that's something important to me because I want each of my tests to just be in its own environment. I don't want my tests messing with other tests. So I'm trying to use Postgres here, which I think Postgres is great. This is not anything against Postgres, but everything was failing, and I dug in and was looking at some of the errors, and it looks like Lucy's using some very old driver by default. I, I will have to pull it up, but it was I couldn't even find it on the Postgres JDBC website. Um, just and so my first thought is okay, let's update to the latest using the Lucy extension updater, and it came close. It wasn't the newest version, but it was at least in the same major version. So I updated it to the version 42 dot something, and I started getting something really weird. About like 6 tests through, I'd get an error on my test from the database that said I had a syntax error with the keyword returning. How Postgres gives data back to you is you can add this returning keyword on and ask for columns back. So like if you were inserting a row, you could ask for the primary key back. The reason it's weird is I don't do any inserts. There's no word returning in my entire project. QB has some that it can add in there, but I'm not using any of that. I'm dumping out all the queries. It's it's still failing. I copy the SQL that has been generated. That fails. And this led me into my diving into Lucy and eventually the Postgres JDBC driver source code. I became kind of obsessed on this. I thought about it way too much and I had to get answers. So Cold Fusion, and this is all going to be Lucy specific, will ask for generated keys back from the JDBC driver for you if you ask for a result object. So on the CF query tag, result equals something, or query execute in the options, result equals some variable name. If you have that on, Lucy will assume you want generated keys and will pass that flag through. So for my example, if I took off that result, everything worked fine. Issue is that result also has things like record count or execution time, things besides generated keys. So I didn't really want to get rid of it, especially since QB was the one asking for that data, not necessarily like my application. So I still had the question where this returning keyword was coming from. And so, diving down more, getting into the JDBC layer now, Lucy passes off the call. It's asking this query to execute with the generated keys returned. And it turns out that Postgres has a slight parsing bug in their JDBC driver where it would see the delete or update keyword in the foreign key constraint. So that's where you do this column on delete cascade or on update restrict. It would see that word and it would mark the query as an update or a delete query, which does get generated keys back. And then it would try to add returning onto my statement and blow up, which is why I never saw the SQL because it was happening all the way over in the JDBC driver. So finally figured that out. There's a little pull request, and I'll put that in for anybody who's curious to go look at it, that helps their parser see that. Now, they haven't merged it because, and I don't know if they will, because this is kind of caught in a weird spot because their answer was, you're using the wrong method. And this is one thing I learned. There's more than one way to execute a statement in the JDBC world. We are very blessed on the Cold Fusion side to just have to pass a query. But in the JDBC world, this would more correctly be an execute update method rather than execute. Lucy, though, does not care. It kind of depends on the JDBC driver to know if it should return keys and know what it's going on, and it just calls execute. So I have a ticket open for Lucy as well, documenting this, and we're kind of in this weird limbo where I don't know if the JDBC driver will pull it in or if they'll say that Lucy should change. I don't know if Lucy's going to want to change. But right now, if you are using Postgres and foreign key constraints and a result object, you will get errors. And that is my horror story that took probably 2.5 days off and on to figure out. Right. The ideal fix for me would be Postgres merges in my change and everybody benefits, especially if they make a quote unquote mistake and call execute with generated keys with a create table. But I, we've all done pull requests to a project where the person says, no, I don't want to support that. And then you're just like, that's sad. So if that's the case, I hope Lucy will give us some workarounds. I think my favorite there is, even if they just gave us a way to mark a query as, hey, I really don't want generated keys, but I want the result object back. So yeah, One thing in all this, Adobe has its own issues because it uses very old drivers as well. But even on the latest Adobe versions, 2018, 2021, it does not have this issue. So Adobe is doing something different than Lucy. Obviously, I can't go find out what that is because it's closed source. But they are using the same major version driver, 42.2.14, but without this issue. So Adobe's doing something different. I wish I knew what it was. They might be, which means that they're parsing the query or at least looking for certain keywords, which is something that I mentioned that Lucy could do. It's kind of a tricky situation because right now Lucy doesn't have to parse anything, and so getting in that business is to work around something else is kind of sad. Um, and nobody on the Cold Fusion side wants to think, do I need to execute or execute update? Right? There's a reason we use Cold Fusion, and that's so we don't think about that stuff. So, well, that's when it would fail. Like if you didn't have foreign key constraints, it wouldn't mess up at all. So, but yeah, again, I hope Postgres merges it in, but that's a huge library, and we will see. We will see. I'll keep everybody up to date. All right. Somebody in the chat says you might be muted, Gavin. Charlie does, but I'm not sure. I can hear you still.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I thought I'd unmute. I had to cough, and so I muted myself, but I thought I'd unmuted. I was just saying, yeah, I'm sure you'll keep everybody updated. So.
Yep.
Okay, so next up we have our VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. And this one is going to be, it's kind of a weird one, I've never heard of before, but it's Quokka.js. And it's made by Wallaby.js, which is a testing framework. But so Quokka.js is meant to be a developer productivity tool for rapid JavaScript TypeScript prototyping. And basically the runtime values are updated and shown in your IDE next to your code as you type. So I thought this is kind of interesting. Like it'll actually evaluate looking for functions that don't exist or variables that don't exist, etc. So I'm not sure how deep it goes, but it's kind of like a little neat feature. So as you start mentioning functions or using things that don't exist, it'll say it's not a number, doesn't exist, undefined, etc. So basically as you go, it'll try and keep up with it. So I thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, you can basically just add some little shortcuts and see the code results right in the IDE. So yeah. So
I like that, especially when it talks about TypeScript prototyping. Have you tried anything with TypeScript, Gavin?
No, I've refrained from that so far. I know there's some definitely some big pluses with TypeScript, but I haven't gone down that route yet. But
yeah. Well, I think having the instant evaluation that you see here is definitely a plus for TypeScript, where you're trying to figure out what types you're supposed to be passing in some cases. So that's nice.
Yeah. Oh, so Dan Card in the chat saying, for those who didn't know, a quokka is a rodent-esque animal from Australia. It was the Q in my son's alphabet cards, and I needed to Google it.
That's amazing. I guess that fits with Wallaby.js, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I should know more about it, being a Kiwi, living just across the pond, as they say.
But it's so different, right? Australia and New Zealand.
Well, yep, that's what we say, but everybody else.
Exactly.
So, for those who want to see, that's a quokka. Little marsupialish looking thing. Yeah. Looks like yeah, it's very different. Interesting. There we go. We all learned something today. Thanks for that, Dan. Okay. So last up, we have our awesome Patreon supporters that we need to thank. So these individuals are personally supporting our open source initiatives like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, Content Box, Test Box, and of course this podcast, which they are funding almost 80% of the podcast now. And so that means Audis can spend its other money on stuff like that, and our package management and command box tools, ForgeBox, and all the cloud tools that power that. So we really appreciate it. You can find out more at patreon.com/AudisSolutions, and you can find a package that meets your size. But bronze packages and up now get the special perks you mentioned at the start of the show, Eric. So a ForgeBox Pro and a CFCast subscription are perks for bronze packages and up. But also,
you also
go ahead.
get a special forum on the Audis community website and a little badge that shows that you are a Patreon supporter.
Yep, and you get that no matter what level you are. So we definitely want to make you feel a little special. It makes us feel special to know that you guys are willing to support us. It does mean a lot to all of us. So thank you very much. And Eric, whose turn is it to read the names?
I believe it is my turn.
Go for it.
Turn to read these names poorly with love. Thank you to Dom Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, David Bellinger, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, Jonathan Perrette, Mario Rodriguez, Jeffrey McGee with Sunstar Media, John Wilson with Synaptrix, Yogesh Mathur, Joseph Lamery, Ben Nadal, Brett DeLine, Carl Von Stetten, Charlie Earhart, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, Didier Lesnicki, Edgardo Cabezas, Jan Yannick, Jason Diger, Jeff McLean, Jeremy Adams, Jonas Erickson, Jordan Clark, Kai Koenig, Laxma Titrahadi, Leon Saramelis, Matthew Darby, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Patrick Flynn, Ross Phillips, Scott Steinbeck, Stephanie Mund, Stephen Klotz. Thank you for supporting us through Patreon and all of us at Audis Solutions.
Yep, and if you go to audisolutions.com/about-us/sponsors, you can see all those beautiful people and photos if they've provided them for us. So, again, thank you everybody for watching, listening, and those supporting the show. We really do appreciate it. And you guys have a great week. And then next week, we have episode 100.
100!
So I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do yet, but we'll try and mix it up a little bit. I did hear a whisper about maybe some giveaways or some prizes or something. So we survived 100 episodes. Can you believe it, Eric?
I can. What I can't believe is people are still coming to our live chat for our episodes. We love you, and you are gluttons for punishment.
Yep. No, we appreciate it. Makes it fun, too, because they can fact check us, you know? It's like, it's not like a Facebook fact check, too. They're actually useful. Sorry, I had to make a dig. But anyways, you guys have a good one, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.